Hey ghouls, gays, and theys. I wanted to reintroduce this series, Horror Education, because I kind of let it fall off for a little while, and it mostly has to do with this comment. Hey there, creepy peeps. My name is Nightmare Maven. Welcome back to my channel. So I started this series like a year-ish ago. I revisited the old dark house, which I'll link at the top, whichever side. And I wanted this series to be a mix of different content. So like reviewing new releases, revisiting older films and doing kind of like deep dives, and talking about specific general topics, all under the umbrella of queer horror. And a few months ago, I saw this comment pop up on my revisit of the old dark house. And I'm not gonna lie, I got a little bit discouraged by it, especially when it came to like revisiting queer horror classics. I was instantly like, why? Like what's wrong with that? What did I do wrong? Never mind the fact that the old dark house was directed by an openly gay man. But still, I'm still relatively new out of the closet, so I thought I messed up somewhere. But then I came to my senses a little bit. Queer people have been around literally forever. And for a long time, especially during the Hays Code era, you couldn't depict queer relationships or anything even close to that. But art is meant to be interpreted, and naturally queer people everywhere are going to be able to relate to certain themes in movies to their own experiences. And thus a lot of older films have been adopted as like queer horror classics. So I'm gonna ignore this comment and let's revisit the fuck out of The Lost Boys. Why The Lost Boys? Mostly because I saw it having its 35th anniversary on July 31st, which is in a couple of days. And like the old dark house, this movie was directed by a gay man. So first and foremost, in this movie about vampires, the vampirism in the movie can absolutely have parallels drawn to the AIDS epidemic. HIV/AIDS epidemic made the idea of blood terrifying in the sense of a slow threat of decay, which is something that's kind of prevalent in vampire stories, at least in theme. We see Michael drink David's blood, and that's what begins his transformation. Michael's first kill, aka taking more blood, would make his transformation permanent. I think it goes without saying the AIDS epidemic is a very serious and tragic point in history, especially for the gay community. So naturally people have drawn parallels between that in a lot of vampire movies, not just The Lost Boys. That's just one specific interpretation of vampires. Vampires have always been used to signify otherness in society, and especially the further back you go in time, queer people were certainly confined to the shadows of society, much like the vampire. So it's no surprise to me that vampire movies in general are some of the most commonly queer-coded movies. But let's talk about David specifically for a second. Look at how he operates in this movie. He surrounds himself with young, good-looking, scantily clad men, and he is drawn to Michael from the start. And I know later on Star says that David intended Michael to be Star's first kill, but I don't really buy that. Think about it. Michael was literally obsessed with Star from the moment he saw her. You don't think, like, in that very first scene, if she had walked over to him and said, "Hey big boy, wanna make out?" Michael would have been like, "Hell yeah, pretty lady," and then she could just kill him. It would be that easy. So why would David bother teasing Michael, challenging Michael, and inviting him out to his boys' night, hanging off a bridge fun times? He try and tempt Michael into committing his first kill, which would fully transform him into a vampire. The math just doesn't math. I would also like to point out, speaking of that like first kill moment where David and the guys take Michael to try and tempt him into killing for the first time, the scene that they take him to tempt him is literally a group of men partying on the beach. I don't remember seeing a single feminine presenting person in that moment. That's what David wanted to tempt Michael with. And I think, my own interpretation as the movie goes on, I think Star is being used more as a sexual lure. No, that's kind of incredibly sexist, but David uses Michael's attraction to her to get him to join in with their gang. During Michael's initiation, he goes into a trance, and at first he sees Star's face, which would signify his attraction to her, but it is quickly replaced by David's face, who is whispering Michael's name. And I'm like, I don't know, that seems pretty queer to me, y'all. The way he was whispering Michael's name, it was hot. And so many of their interactions end up with the camera super duper close to their faces, like they are the only ones there. Like Star, who we don't even know her. It's not just the camera that's close either, like their faces are so close together. Like they're like a millimeter away from making out, like total enemies to lovers. Unfortunately, I can't discuss the themes in this movie without talking about the end of the movie, where all of this seems to unravel. But the injected humor into this horror story could definitely be interpreted as maybe an intended satirical discussion on the way queer people are treated in society, especially in the late 80s when this movie came out. The movie at the end comes across more like this message of like, watch out boys, or the gays are gonna get ya. Sam's initial reaction to Michael's changes is to out him to their mom, effectively. And he turns to the Frog Brothers, who represent this like all-American type that spit out the word bloodsucker like it's a slur. In the end, Max is defeated and Michael, Star, and Laddie are the ones that are saved, the very picture of the nuclear family. Or I suppose if we wanted to keep running with the HIV/AIDS theme of this, could maybe be a dark comedy satire take on like, hey, if you're in a straight relationship, this isn't gonna happen to you, but if you're into the gay relationship, you could die of AIDS, is really tragic and sad. I mentioned David is painted in quite a sympathetic light, actually, for, you know, supposedly being the villain of this film, especially at the end. All the other deaths from the group are violent and messy, but David almost looks angelic now that he's quote unquote been freed from his queerness. I'm sorry, I meant vampirism. And can we just talk about this last line of the movie?
One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires.
An old white dude like that, I've literally heard people that look just like him say this exact line, but the word vampires is replaced with something else, usually a slur. And as I said at the start of this video, this movie was made by a gay man, so it could have been intended to be tongue-in-cheek, satire, maybe. So do you consider The Lost Boys to be a queer horror movie? I think it's definitely queer coded, and people have absolutely picked up on some of the homoeroticism, especially between David and Michael. I mean, just search The Lost Boys on TikTok and half of those videos are essentially people critiquing the movie because those two should have been making out, and that's their only critique of the movie. For better or worse though, I think it's safe to say there is a group of queers that have adopted this movie as a queer horror classic. So let me know what other queer horror classics you'd like me to dissect next in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here, become a Creepy Peep today. I post 2 new videos every week, do lives, collabs, all that fun stuff. So I'll see you very soon with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.